Hola, buenos días. En este video vamos a hablar del imperfecto. So for this video, we're going to be looking at the imperfect in Spanish. This is a form of the past, and we'll look at the uses of it, the conjugation of all kinds of verbs in the imperfect, give you some example sentences for each use, and then also giving you an activity to practice the conjugations if you want to stick around for that. Before I get going, the document you see on your screen is available to you in the description of the video. You're welcome to print it off or save it and keep it for a reference in the future. So before we get to the conjugations, I have the various uses of the imperfect right here. So it can be used for habitual or repeated actions. Habitual is something you did a lot in the past. The second one, ongoing actions in the past, like think ing, like I was running or we were talking, for example. Talking about age, weather, time, date, descriptions of people, like someone being short or interesting or funny, and feelings like being happy or state of being like sick or hurt. So I'll give you some examples for each of those here after we look at the conjugations. So the first one is hablar, and I'll go through the pronunciation of it for you. It is hablaba, hablabas, hablaba, hablábamos, hablabais, hablaban. So the nice thing about the imperfect, if you haven't started learning this yet, is that there are only 3 irregular verbs in the imperfect. We'll get to those in a second. And their AR verbs are all conjugated exactly the same. There aren't any irregular AR verbs. You'll also notice, if you haven't already, that the yo form and the he, she form, usted form, are exactly the same. You would know which one you're using based on context. Also, if you can really just remember one of them, like let's say you just remember the yo form is hablaba. Well, if you know that, then you know the he, she form, right? So if you add an S to it, you got the to form. If you add a mos to it, you got the nosotros. If you add an is to it, you got the vosotros. And if you add the n to it, then you have the eos form. And that works for all verbs in the imperfect, the er verbs, the ir verbs, the irregular verbs. If you know one of them, just add the s for the to form, remove it for the he, she form, add the n for the eos, add the mos for the nosotros, and then if you're learning the vosotros, you can just add the is to it. So that's all AR verbs in the imperfect. And there aren't any boot verbs like jugar in the present tense goes to juego. That change does not take place in the imperfect. Let's go to comer. So comer is comía, comías, comía, comíamos, comíais, y comían. So the same kind of thing as far as the yo form is the same as the he, she form. You'll notice that the endings are the pattern that we use over here for add the s, drop the s, add the n, add the mos, add the is. That works the same for the er verbs. And if you haven't noticed already, ir verbs are exactly the same, the conjugations in the imperfect as the er verbs. So really, if you know your er verbs, you know all of the ir verbs with the exception of the 3 irregulars that I'm going to show you guys right now. So ir is iba, ibas, iba, ibamos, ibais, iban. And again, that same pattern works by adding the s, dropping the s, adding the n, adding the mos, adding the is. It's the same. Ser goes to era, eras, era, éramos, erais, eran. And ver goes to veía, 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 veíamos, veíais, and veían. The only thing that's irregular about ver is that it keeps this e right here. Otherwise, it has the normal er endings on it, so it's not too irregular. So here's some. These are the same uses that were at the top of the document, and then I put some examples over here. I'll just read them to you and translate what they would mean in English. So the first one for habitual or repeated: Cuando tenía 10 años, jugaba baloncesto mucho. So when I was 10 years old, I played basketball a lot. Now, it doesn't say yo, but I could put that in there for you. So me playing basketball is something I did habitually. That's why it's in the imperfect. Ongoing actions: Ayer yo hacía la tarea cuando mi mamá llegó. So I was doing the homework when my mom arrived. Now, this is the preterite. That's a different conjugation. You probably have already learned that. Eventually, you'll get to using both the preterite and the imperfect in the same sentence. For now, though, this is in the imperfect because I was doing this action at that time. Age: yo tenía 20 años cuando visité Mexico. So I was 20 years old when I visited Mexico. Again, this is like the last sentence where you have an imperfect with a preterite, but don't worry about the preterite for now. Weather: hacía mucho frío recientemente. So it's been, or it was really cold recently. Time, date: eran las 2 de la noche. It was 2 at night. Era el primero de noviembre. It was November 1st. Descriptions of people: Mi amigo era gordo y cómico. My friend was fat and funny. And then the last example for feelings or state of being. Yo estaba triste mientras mi amigo tenía un hueso roto. So I was sad, that's my feeling, while my friend had a broken bone. And that's his being hurt. Now, if you want to, I have a paragraph here that requires a bunch of verbs to be conjugated in the imperfect. If you want to pause the video for about 5 seconds, then I'm going to start giving you the answer after that. So pause the video if you want to do these, and then here come the answers. Okay, so I will just read the paragraph to you with the verbs conjugated in them. Cuando yo era joven, yo vivía con mi familia en California. Nosotros teníamos una casa pequeña. Yo compartía una habitación con mi hermano menor. Él no era terrible. Nosotros jugábamos con los Legos mucho. Mis padres eran simpáticos. Mi padre trabajaba en un restaurante y mi madre trabajaba en la casa. Mi hermano mayor era alto y jugaba al baloncesto. Nosotros estábamos felices. I'm going to just say one more thing I forgot to say earlier. The regular ER and IR verbs, they all have accent marks on this I right here all the way through it. So you don't have to remember, like, where's the accent mark? It's always on that IA, I. The AR verbs, it's just on the nosotros, on that vamos. And then for the irregular verbs, ir has it just on that I, ser has it just on that E, and then ver has it all the way throughout on that I. Anyway, if you have questions, let me know. Again, the document's available to you in the description of the video. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time. Hasta luego.